Hey there, everybody. Dave Valente, the Thursday Night Hockey Show. How's everyone doing tonight? I already have a comment in the feed. Thank you, Jasper. I really appreciate you dropping by, saying hi. Thanks to those of you on YouTube, on Facebook, on wherever you're watching online. Those to you on TikTok, thanks for joining us. Wherever you're at, give us a like, share, subscribe. If you're on TikTok, smash that screen a little bit, send some likes. What that does is actually helps boost the reach of our show. So, uh, thanks, Jasper. I really appreciate that, man. That's awesome. There's a lot to get into tonight, and without further ado, let's get into it. Um, the night in the world of hockey. It's a busy night. I think there's 11 games tonight. Starting at 7 o'clock, we've got Colorado and Ottawa. We've got Montreal in Florida. Pittsburgh at the Garden to face the Rangers. Tampa is facing the New Jersey Devils. And that's the 7 o'clock slate. Then we jump to 8 o'clock. We got Boston in Winnipeg to take on the Jets. Chicago taking on a very hot Nashville Predators. At 9 o'clock, we move out to Edmonton, where Dallas is in town to take on the Oilers. At 10 o'clock, Calgary is in Vegas to take on the very hot Golden Knights team. Vancouver's in Arizona for battle for the tank. And Columbus is out in LA to take on the Kings. And to wrap up the night, as well at 10:30, Seattle versus San Jose. So a very full night. It's going to take you from 7 p.m. up until probably about 1:30 a.m. this morning. So if you're on the East Coast, so very full night. Enjoy the hockey tonight. I really appreciate um, full nights like this. At least my Buffalo Sabres aren't playing tonight. So um, Bruins versus the Jets is going to be a very good game tonight. The problem for the Jets, though, is they've been sliding recently, and we've got some injury news for them coming up that isn't going to help them much. Although he's been out for a little bit, but Sam Gagne is going to be out for the rest of the season for the Jets, so that's not going to help them in their forward depth. Um, let's go to the breaking news. Yeah, so the breaking news tonight is that we've had the NHL GM meetings going on in Florida today. The indication is that the salary cap for next season may go up to go up by another million, so $83 million, maybe even a little more, which is big news for teams like Vegas, Tampa, always struggling with the cap. A little more wiggle room for them. Folks like Buffalo and Arizona not going to have to worry about it too much anyway, because they're already, struggling to hit the cap floor. So, um, the other thing they did was announce the schedule for the postseason. Postseason starts April 17th. The draft lottery is going to be on May 8th. So all these teams fighting for Connor Bedard will know their fate on May 8th. Um, they did discuss some rule changes, talking about changes to delay of game penalties, such as like a guy tips a puck with their stick and it goes up into the crowd. Is that a delay of game penalty? Can you review delay of game penalties? That type of thing. They also reviewed whether to enhance penalties after a fight is instigated following a clean hit. Um, they decided to make no changes. They're pretty satisfied with where the game is at right now. I would be happy if it was a little bit better officiating. A promotion to your channel, viewers, followers. Okay, all right, I appreciate that. All right, so right now they've decided not to make any changes. They've decided to go ahead and just say, we're going to keep this game going as we like right now. We don't see any changes going in. Doesn't mean that the owners or GMs meeting later in the year or over the summer decide to make changes, but right now they don't see anything coming. So, and usually they need one at the GMs meeting before they do something with the owners and presidents and board of governors later this year. So, um, on Tuesday night, very cool thing. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but in uh, a partnership between the NHL and Nickelodeon. Uh, the New York Rangers game with the Washington Capitals on Tuesday night. featured what is called Big City Greens. I've never really heard of it before, but what they did was they were tracking players and turning them into cartoons. So it was basically live action game or live action cartoon on Nickelodeon, showing the players. It was really cool. It was, I think, as technology gets a little bit better, it'll probably be a lot better to watch. But I thought it was really cool, and I thought it kept up pretty well. It was sad that Alexander Ovechkin didn't get a chance to play in that game, but yeah, it's a cool technology. I don't think they should do it like full time or anything like that, but I think it's very interesting that they went with this because we've seen Nickelodeon partner with with the NFL, um, and that's been pretty cool. But I think this is going another step further and actually integrating the gameplay into Nickelodeon stuff, and maybe like the Winter Classic, it's a one game a year thing, and teams kind of fight to be on it to get a little more exposure and kind of bring in that next level group of fans to do it. Was it Disney? I thought it was on Nickelodeon, but who knows? Oh, so it was Disney. All right, that's cool. So kudos to Disney. Kudos to all that because again, we're trying to get a new generation fan um, into the building. So I'll get to that here in a little bit because there's a lot of stuff that we'll be talking about. Um, we had a question about who do I think will get into the playoffs. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But like I said, draft lottery is going to take place on May 8th. I know a lot of teams are very interested in what goes on with that. Uh, let's talk about Boston for a second. Boston, they've clinched the playoff berth this early in the season. Only one team's been eliminated, that's San Jose, but Boston has clinched the playoff berth. It's they have set records. Fastest team to get to 100 points when they beat my Sabres the other last week. Fastest team to 50 wins a couple nights later. The question for Boston right now is how do you approach the rest of the season? Um, very soon now they're going to clinch the division. The Atlantic really there is no question unless Boston just completely collapses. How do they approach the rest of the season? Do they rest players? Do they uh, you know do they try and go for records? I don't know. I don't think that that's something that they really want to do. Is you know tax themselves too much on going for a record because really the goal for a team that is as old as Boston is to take advantage of when they have the opportunity to win a Stanley Cup. Uh, uh, you know, winning more games in a season than any other team that's cool and all, but it doesn't mean anything if they don't win the Stanley Cup. So I think they're going to put all their efforts into making sure that they're physically rested and ready to go for a Stanley Cup. Yeah, they have. I think it's just two right now, but that they've lost two in a row. I don't know. It's not concerning though because again, like I said, I think they're getting themselves ready for a long run in April and June and May and June. They want to horse the Stanley Cup. If they drop a few games here and there in the regular season, not a big deal. I think they've got long enough to recover from what's going on before they get into the meat of the playoffs. Now, there's also school of thought that is you want to be playing your best hockey as you roll into the playoffs. I'm not sure if they do. I'm not sure if that's a matter for Boston because again, they've got a really good, really experienced team, and I think they're built for the playoffs. I think they're built for playoff success. So we'll see. They've got choices though. They're the way that they play this season has afforded them whatever they want to do going into the playoffs. Whether they want to chase records or whether they want to relax and get everyone physically ready for a long playoff battle. Let's see. Final news story that we'll talk about this week: the sale of the Ottawa Senators is going on. Apparently, they've gotten some competitive bids, and they're starting to get a little bit of a bidding war, which I'm sure every owner in the NHL is salivating at the idea that the Ottawa Senators are going to have a bidding war for their franchise. It's just going to drive up their franchise values um, ex- exponentially. I mean, you look at how much the Sabres sold for. You look at how much the Coyotes would sell for. If you can get a team like Ottawa to really bust that out, that's a big thing for all these owners. And you might see a few owners decide to take a chance and just sell their teams in response to what Ottawa gets. Um, I think whatever happens with Ottawa, whoever is getting Ottawa is getting themselves into a good situation for the first few seasons. They've got a good young team, so I don't think that there's too much downside with um, uh, getting into Ottawa, even overpaying a little bit to get the franchise. I know that there's a big favorite in Ryan Reynolds. He's a Canadian kid and wants to buy a hockey club. Knowing what he's done with Wrexham FC, um, maybe he's a good fit, maybe not. Who knows? Let's talk about the 3 stars of the week. So, 3 stars of the week were announced by the NHL on Tuesday. Clayton Keller of the Arizona Coyotes was the first star of the week. He had a really good week, 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points in 4 games. So, almost 2 points a game, or actually over 2 points a game for Clayton Keller of the Coyotes. I think the first Coyote to get the first star of the week this season. Number two, familiar face, Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He got 2 goals. Both of those were game winners for a team that's really fighting for a playoff spot and wild card position. 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points in 4 games. And then Mitch Marner got a mention as third star. He only played 2 games last week, but he got 2 goals and 4 assists in those 2 games. So Mitch Marner, third star of the week, based off of 3 points per game production. So um, that's pretty impressive. All right, let's go to our injury news. I know we've got a lot of injuries to go through. Let's see. Are the Blues down 2 players? Yeah, Taylor Hall and Marcus Foligno are injured. I don't know that either one of them are destined to be out into the playoffs. You know, th- but they're in a way they're in such a lead right now that they don't really have to worry too much about that. Um, Crosby's good, yeah. He's broken my heart many times. So, um, yeah, let's hit the injury news. Yeah, so the pill bottle shakes. Who does the pill bottle shake for this week? Well, top of the list, as I mentioned earlier, Sam Gagne, forward for the Winnipeg Jets, is out for the rest of the season. A season with surgery for it's a bilateral hip surgery, so both sides were injured. He last played on February 28th. So the Jets are going to be out with the services of Sam Gagne to continue to fight for a playoff spot. Ryan O'Reilly for the Toronto Maple Leafs, recently acquired a few games into his Leafs career, took a shot off the hand and is out. He's skating again. They think he's going to be back before the playoffs, but yeah, he's been out for a few games now for the Maple Leafs. Um, but Toronto's in a pretty good position right now. It's really just who wins second place in the Atlantic Division to take on the third place team. So is it going to be Tampa versus Toronto with Toronto home ice advantage or Tampa home ice advantage? We're not sure yet, but we'll see. Christian Dvorak of the Montreal Canadiens is out the rest of the season following knee surgery. He hasn't played since the 7th. Uh, at this time of year, you're seeing these teams that are towards the bottom of the standings. They're going to start letting players take some time, and take care of some of these injuries, so that they're ready for training camp and ready to start next season fresh. There's no reason to if Christian Dvorak has any issues with his knees to continue skating him for another month while the Canadians skate out the string of this season. So Christian Dvorak having knee surgery, he'll be back in time for next season. This might be a bigger blow. Arturi Lehkonen, who was really kind of a hero for the Colorado Avalanche last year as they ran for the playoffs, um, he is like broken finger on his hand. Which, people say, "Oh, it's just a broken finger. Hockey players are strong." remember how much you have to manipulate a stick with your hand and think about all that pressure it's going to put on a finger. You just can't, tape it up and go back out there. You these injuries are much tougher on a hockey player than almost any other sport. So, but yeah, Arturi Lehkonen was one of those kind of unsung heroes for the Colorado Avalanche last year. Scored some big goals, played some big minutes for the Avs as they went on to their third Stanley Cup. So yeah, big blow for him. That's going to put him out at least a round of the playoffs. Well, if he gets back in 4 weeks, he should be okay for the playoffs. But if he goes out to 6 weeks, that's going to take him through at least a round and maybe a couple of games into the next round. So, big news for the Colorado Avalanche. Also mentioned this week is that Coach Jared Bednar is very concerned about the return of Gabriel Landeskog, who had off-season knee surgery and then a second procedure at the beginning of the season. He has yet to join the team, and he is concerned that he may not be able to return back to his, elite level when he does come back. So that's it's interesting for a coach to even really talk a ton about injuries, but to express that kind of concern about whether he's going to be able to come back, that's really telling. So let's see. The Probably the biggest injury news of the last week or so has been the news that Andrei Svechnikov is injured and out for the season, had knee surgery. Hopefully, will be back at the beginning of next season, but it's reconstructive knee surgery for Andrei Svechnikov. That could take up to 9 months to a year for him to come back from. So that's very concerning for the Carolina Hurricanes. That not only are you going to lose Svechnikov for the playoff push as Carolina continues to maintain first place in the Metro Division, but parts of next season too. So, the concern is just to get him back healthy. But yeah, it was not a good thing. He was injured in a game against the Vegas Golden Knights. So, big news for the Carolina Hurricanes because it hit right after the trade deadline. So there's no way that they can address it for this season. So we'll see how they can move forward going into the playoffs without one of their big guns. Pittsburgh also recently acquired a player like Brian O'Reilly, but they recently acquired Nick Bonino in his third game with the Penguins against the Islanders on March 3rd. He got hit, and apparently the injury, he was feeling some discomfort the next day. They sent him to a hospital. He had to get surgery for a lacerated kidney. Holy crap. What the hell, man? So he's going to be out for a couple weeks, which for a couple weeks they're saying week to week. Lacerated kidney. That's respect to the guy. If you're gonna be out a couple weeks for and having had surgery on your kidney, which really is pretty exposed when you're playing hockey, that's brass ones in both hands, man. I'm pretty impressed. Pro Kaprizov, another big one, is out 3 to 4 weeks with a lower body injury suffered last Wednesday against the Jets. Minnesota really hasn't missed a beat without Kaprizov, which is surprising because he's really been kind of their offense. But they're doing okay the last few weeks, last few games. Um, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. And then finally, from my Sabres, a couple of injury announcements. Matthias Samuelson is week to week with a upper body injury suffered in the overtime loss to the Rangers on Saturday. Um, and the problem is that the Sabres have been awful in the games that he's missed this season. So hurry back, Michael Matthias. We really need you. And then in a 10-4 drubbing against the Dallas by the Dallas Stars, Sabres goaltender Eric Comrie is injured and out for the rest of the season. Um, I don't know how much of it is an injury or that they really hung that dude out to dry for that entire game. That was awful. He should have been pulled. Um, I really blame the coach for not pulling him during that game. There's no shame in pulling somebody early in a game. There is shame in having them stick around for 10 goals against. That was you just don't do that to a goaltender. Um, But yeah, he's out for the rest of the season. Now Buffalo's had their goaltending kind of solved for them, saying, "Hey, you needed to get two goaltenders. Now it's you got two goaltenders. It's UPL or Craig Anderson." And if you watched the game last night, if UPL starts a game, I would not be angry if they get to a shootout and they just dump Craig Anderson in there cold because UPL has not looked good at all on any shot during the shootout this season. So let us go to crime and punishment. Yeah. So we got crime and punishment this week. We've had a few good weeks where players were behaving themselves when it came to the season. But last night we had a really big blow up. So Jordan Bennington, the goaltender of the St. Louis Blues, noted hothead, um, has received a two-game suspension for his actions last night against Minnesota. Ryan Hartman scored a power play goal that gave Minnesota a 5-4 lead at the time. Bennington lost his shit. There's no two ways about it. He got it from the crease and proceeded to punch Ryan Hartman in the face with his blocker. Now, uh, blockers are hard. Like the this part, the you've ever seen blockers? It's the big square rectangular thing that they wear on the arm that doesn't have the glove, holds the stick. Um, it's hard to be able to deflect shots. To get punched in the face with it is not very pleasant. So I'm not sure why it was only two games. I think knowing Jordan Bennington's prior history of being a complete hothead, probably should have given him a few more games on that one. Maybe I think at least three. He got a minor penalty and for leaving the crease and a match penalty for his actions in punching Hartman. But honestly, this is too late. Like this guy has been known to swing sticks at players. Uh, there was that famous incident last year in the playoffs where he tossed a water bottle at Nazem Kadri after beating him in overtime. Um, he's gonna hurt somebody, whether it's doing something with his blocker like he did last night, or whether he just at one point swings his stick and actually catches a player in a vulnerable spot. He's gonna he's gonna hurt somebody and seriously hurt somebody. So they need to actually do something about Mr. Bennington before he does that. And I think 2 games is too light of a suspension for him. That's really just a break rather than a full suspension. But let's see, other guys were behaving badly this week or in the last couple of weeks since we didn't have a show last week. John Tavares was fined $5,000, which is the maximum based off of his contract for slashing Desharnais of the Oilers defenseman on Saturday night. You know, it had to have been a pretty egregious slash for it to get the 5,000 because I've seen slashes worse that don't get anything. And the aforementioned Ryan Hartman is actually $4,600 lighter in the wallet after slashing Rasmus Anderson of the Flames last Tuesday. So, and then finally to wrap up the suspensions, Tony DeAngelo got 2 games for himself for telling Corey Perry where the capital of Thailand is by hitting him in the crotch with his stick, a spearing incident. Um, I don't know. I would have given both of those guys more games than just 2 and 2. If um, what's his face for the Rangers, Keandre Miller can get 3 games for spitting. Um, this is to me much more egregious on both players' behalf. So let's see. Let's go to the teams and players of the week. I actually did the players of the week. Let's go to the teams of the week. Not hit that again. Wow. All right, yeah. So, teams of the week. Let's go to our team of the week in the Metro Division. Let's talk about the New Jersey Devils. So, the Devils are 7-2-1 in the last 10 games, and they're only a couple points behind Carolina. We talked about Carolina's issue with Andrei Svechnikov, so this is going to be a big chance for New Jersey to actually uh, pass the Carolina Hurricanes, force that first round matchup between Carolina and the Rangers rather than New Jersey and the Rangers, um, giving New Jersey a much more favorable matchup in that first round versus a wild card team. Um, so we'll see how New Jersey continues to play. They've been pretty consistent all season, so this might be their opening with Carolina having the injury issues. Our cold team in the Metro Division is going to be the Philadelphia Flyers. They are sinking into the Bedard conversation, further into the Bedard conversation. They're one. I'm sorry, 2-7-1 in the last 10 games. Um, they're 10 points up on last place Columbus, and Columbus is leading the tank battle at this point. So they are the Columbus is the tank commanders, but yeah, Philadelphia sinking, making up ground or losing ground. I don't know how you would think of a team intentionally losing towards the end of the season, but uh, yeah, who knows? Maybe Connor Bedard ends up in Philadelphia. I hope not. I want Philadelphia to suffer. That's just me. Let's see. Let's go to the team of the week in the Atlantic Division, and of course, that's the aforementioned Boston Bruins. Despite losing two straight games, they are division best 7-3-0 in the last 10. And and of course the aforementioned record set that they did the last couple weeks. How what they really the records are in their hands. They could go for even more records like win records in a season and points in a season. So we'll see what see what they do. I think they're going to lay back and get healthy for the playoffs though. All right, and our cold team in the Atlantic Division, I would have nailed my Buffalo Sabres. Maybe if they hadn't beaten Toronto on Monday night, they'd probably be here. But Detroit is set 2-7-1 in the last 10 games, and they've dropped to seventh in the Atlantic. Before the trade deadline, they were hot. They were roasting. The Monday before the trade deadline, they got into a 2-game series with Ottawa and lost both of them. And they decided to be sellers, except for that really weird trade that they tried to do with Philadelphia that didn't pan out. But Detroit has fallen back. They're now seventh in the division. They'd actually gotten up as high as fourth in the division before the collapse here. So Detroit building for next season and falling back. In the Central Division, our team of the week this week is Minnesota. I said that they've got 10 points or they got points in 10 straight games, 7-0-3, and they moved into second in the Central, a couple points behind, or I'm sorry, 1 point behind Dallas. So I think the Central and the Pacific are both going to go down to the wire as to who wins and who gets home ice advantage. Very competitive in both divisions. But yeah, Minnesota went from fighting Calgary for the second wild card spot a couple weeks ago to all the way up into second place and could take over Dallas's first place position relatively quickly. And this is without Kirill Kaprizov. So kudos to the Minnesota Wild. Our cold team in the Central Division this week is the Winnipeg Jets. They have been sliding, and they've slid from second place in the division all the way to wild card two. And if they don't get their act together, no, really, there's only one team that's I think reasonably in the conversation, and that's Nashville. Now, Nashville was a seller at the trade deadline. They pawned off a lot of stuff at the trade deadline, got a lot of stuff back. Did a really good job at the trade deadline, in my opinion. But they've heated up and they are chasing, and they could get back into this playoff conversation if Winnipeg keeps losing. If Winnipeg can string together a few wins, I think they can put Nashville away. But yeah, no, kudos to Nashville for what they're doing right now. But yeah, Winnipeg 3-5-2 in the last 10. They need to probably get to like a 5-3-2 in the last 10 to really kind of put a little more distance between themselves and Nashville. In the Pacific Division, our team of the week is the Vegas Golden Knights. They are winners of four in a row, 7-2-1 in the last 10. What's important? they're really they're way far up on uh, the Nashville Predators in the standings. Nashville is the team that's outside the playoffs that could catch them and put them outside the playoffs. Um, the Golden Knights would need to go on an epic failure run to miss the playoffs this year, and uh, I point this out because it is Jack Eichel's second season in Vegas. This will be his first time making the playoffs in his career. So, kudos to Jack Eichel for finally getting to the promised land. Uh, then the question becomes, what do you do with that? So, um, and then our coldest team of the week in the division is the San Jose Sharks. They've swooned since the deadline with a 1-7-2 record in the last 10. Um, it's interesting to see what has become of the San Jose Sharks. I don't think they did a really great job in the trade deadline. I don't think they got enough for the players they did. Weren't able to get rid of Eric Carlson, which would have been a uh, it would have been a really hard ask for them to get rid of Eric Carlson at the trade deadline, but did not do that. Um, let's see. Yes, we got some cross savers. Hey Heidi, how you doing? Appreciate you dropping in. Yeah, my Buffalo Sabres are struggling. Um, let's do the Sabres beat. And the Sabres beat this week. I am terming closing time. You okay? Let's lay the facts out on the line. The Buffalo Sabres are 6 points out of a playoff spot. They have 3 games in hand on the team that they're chasing, the Islanders. They play the Islanders once before the end of the season. They can catch the Islanders, but I will tell you, last night's loss in a shootout in a game that they controlled and really had all the opportunities to close out, felt like, okay, that's the loss that did us in. That's when I look back at the end of the season, that's probably the where the morale broke on the team. Granted, they haven't been playing great the last few games, but they had a stirring win against the Maple Leafs after going down 2-0. And you think, okay, well, they're starting to play better. They got Alex Tuck back. He scores 2 big goals in that game against the Maple Leafs, and then Alex Tuck takes just an absolutely boneheaded, idiotic penalty. Buffalo has a power play with 3 minutes left in the game against the Capitals. They're up one. Um, Even if you don't score in the power play, what it allows you to do is to hold the puck, take the time off the clock, get to about a minute 40 seconds left in the game. Power play ends, but you're still at 5 players. They got into the power. Alex Tuck takes that dumb penalty. Um, the Caps were very easy to kill off the rest of the 4-on-4 time with the Sabres. In fact, held the puck for most of that time, that remaining time, and then as soon as the power play was over, or the 4-on-4 situation was over, and they went on the power play, Charlie Lindgren, the goalie, gets off on the bench. We got a 6-on-4, and less than a minute later, the puck's in the back of the net. Absolutely devastatingly stupid game to lose. And this is a team that you were fighting in the standings to get past, and you can't allow that to happen. Um, yeah, most teams are doing better. That at least my Sabres are doing better than they were in 2020 to 2022. But yeah, there's some teams that have fallen back a little bit. But I think the quality of play has certainly gotten better since the whole pandemic and the years where they had to skate in a bubble and all that fun stuff. Um, but yeah, for me, I think the kind of the death knell of the season was that loss last night. Yes, Buffalo can still make the playoffs. There's a very plausible path for them to make the playoffs, but I think the injury to Matthias Samuelson and you know their inexperience in fighting for playoff positioning is what we're seeing right now. And I hope I'm wrong, but I'm feeling like I'm right at this point. So anyway, thank you so much, Jasper. Thank you so much, Heidi. I appreciate you hopping on and chatting with me during the show. Thank you for watching us on TikTok. I really appreciate it. Um, we're going to be back next week to talk more about the playoffs. We'll have a little bit more clarity in which teams are going to make the playoffs next week. Oh, I did promise Jasper. Let me kind of look at the NHL standings here. Um, I will tell you who I think is in and who I think is out at this point, um, based on the standings, or at least who has realistic shot at getting into the playoffs. Um, right now in the Eastern Conference, you got Carolina, New Jersey, and the Rangers, Boston, Toronto, and Tampa. Those teams are solid in the playoffs. I don't anticipate any one of them falling back and getting into a scrap for a playoff position. Right now, the conversation is around the wild card. Now you can talk about positioning amongst the teams in the Metro. Particularly, there's a fight between Carolina and New Jersey for first. Um, but I think the Rangers are pretty solid in that third place position, so they'll be traveling to whoever they're playing in the first round. Um, Boston, of course, they're going to win their division. They're already 16 points up on Toronto as we stand with less than 15 games left. So Tampa, 86 points. They're 3 points behind the Maple Leafs. At this point, I give Toronto the advantage. I think Toronto's played better hockey over the last few weeks and are going to take that second place position. Although this is what happened last season. Toronto finished second, Tampa third. Toronto had home ice, still lost in seven. Um, Pittsburgh, they've really turned it on. Both them and the Islanders. Pittsburgh's got the advantage. They've got 3 games in hand on the Islanders, but they're even on points. But Pittsburgh's played really well in the last 10. Islanders have played pretty well in the last 10 as well, although they've had a little bit easier competition in the last 10. Florida has picked it up, but I think it's a little too late for the Florida Panthers um, for them to pick it up as they have. Washington Capitals, I think it's too late for them. There are 13 games left in the season. They're 5 points behind the Islanders. My Sabres have 15 games left, 72 points, 6 points behind the Islanders, but they have 3 games in hand with the Islanders. I think the most likely scenario is that the Islanders miss out on the playoffs against one of those teams. It could be Florida, it could be Washington, could be Buffalo. Um, Ottawa is still kind of maybe sort of sure, yeah, I guess in the conversation. But they've lost 3 in a row. So Ottawa has kind of fallen off. They had injuries with their goaltending, so I just don't think they have enough to make it right now. So those are the teams. You can go down to 5 teams in that wild card race: Buffalo, Washington, Florida, the Islanders, and Pittsburgh. Um, Islanders were in tough because even though they're in that wild card position because they only have 12 games left in the season, so um, they have to maximize their points. In the Western Conference, though, this is both of these races are competitive. There's only 5 points separating first and third in the Central, so Colorado's at 82 points, Dallas is at 87. Vegas leads the Western Conference with 90 points, but they're only 7 points up on Edmonton for third place in that conference. So even a minor losing streak by any one of these teams could put them take away their positioning. A slight winning streak by these teams could boost them up the standings. So Seattle and Winnipeg. Seattle's at 81 points. I think they're they're 6 points up on Nashville. Um, Winnipeg Winnipeg is at 79 points. Here's the concern with Nashville, though. Nashville has 18 games left. So, at 65 games, they've got, I'm sorry, 17 games left. Um, they have points opportunities to get past both teams. So, neither Seattle nor Winnipeg are safe at this point. But Seattle could win a couple games and get past Edmonton. And then all of a sudden, Edmonton's in that kind of dicey, precarious playoff position with regards to Nashville. So Nashville's going to have a busy schedule going down the last month, but they started off right. They're winning 3 in a row, 7-2 and 1 in the last 10. Nashville could make some noise. which would be shocking based off the fact that they were sellers at the trade deadline. So, anyway, that's it for the show. Appreciate that. Appreciate you guys hopping on. Um, let's see. Sabres are the NHL equivalent of the Saints. You know what? No, they're not. I'll tell you why. The Saints have won a championship. Until the Sabres win a championship, and I can die in peace. That is what happens. Anyway, yep. See you next week, and we'll have a brand new show of the Thursday Night Hockey Show. Have a good one, everybody.